It's been 20 minutes since we got out here.
No, it's only we came out here at 5:10.
Same thing.
10 minutes and 20 minutes are quite different.
Okay. Stop smiling. Okay, so we have 3 cases of alien incidents. The Roswell incident, the Phoenix Lights phenomenon, I can see you nodding. The Phoenix Lights phenomenon, and then one that's from recent times that I will be discussing later.
Spooky. This is like our 7th time trying to film this.
I'm gonna cry.
Why are there so many bugs?
Because it's like 6 p.m.
It is.
So,
only 5
aliens and UFO debris were found in Roswell, New Mexico in early July of 1947. The initial press release of what was discovered called the debris that they found flying saucer, which was directly quoted in the official release in the newspaper.
Oh my god.
So the first person to discover the debris was a rancher named William Braze, who ended up having to drive about 30 miles to Roswell to report the debris.
Why do you report it? Why are there so many bugs?
Why? What else would you do if you find a bunch of stuff?
If I find some random like military stuff right after.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, hey, come clean your stuff up.
No, I'm gonna be like, this is like, especially like right near Los Alamos. I'm gonna be like, no. This is government.
Actually, there was like 3 air bases out there. So
yeah, this is a government
So
cover-up.
first of all, bomb searching teams were sent out to survey it, and once it was deemed safe, the Air Force was allowed to investigate. So the explanation was that it was a crashed weather balloon.
Weather balloon.
Which, originally the debris had been called a flying saucer. This came out the day later. Then, the story, oddly, was later revised several times by government officials. Most notably, the very day after the official...
Government cover-up!
Most notably, the very day after the official release sparked a stir of UFO mania. So, in the Air Force official report on July 9th, a day after the incident...
That's the day before my birthday. Continue.
The debris was declared a crashed weather balloon. It was made of a sort of tinfoil-ish looking material. I know we have a picture of it somewhere. It's a tinfoil-ish type material and like a bunch of like sticks and stuff that sort of seemed like wood. But the thing with the metal was it was unbreakable, it was undentable, but it still was flexible like a sheet of paper.
Like lactobacillus. Shut up. I'm sorry. I deeply dislike probiotics.
So, in the report, it referenced a top-secret classified espionage project known as Project Mogul, which involved the use of high-altitude balloons carrying sound sensors as an attempt to eavesdrop on Soviet nuclear tests.
Oh, I forgot. This is the Cold War. I forgot about the Cold War.
Well, not exactly. It's like after World War II.
Which, isn't that like the start of the Cold War?
Somewhat, yeah.
I don't
But
know.
when people think the Cold War, they think of the 80s or whatever.
I think of the 60s.
Same thing. Okay.
Sure.
So, because there was a theory that microphones could detect sound waves produced by explosions from a very far distance away.
Like alien light year distances away.
So, the wreckage that they found was declared by U.S. military to be part of this project, which supposedly was so highly classified that no one at the Roswell Army Airfield knew of its existence. And the balloon...
Then why are they coming out and being like, this is top secret, but here, tabloids, let me let you in on something.
Well, you'll see. So, the balloons had been tested at several sites, including over New Mexico, in the summer, and they typically measured around 650 feet. So there was a lot of debris here.
Interesting.
In later years, a test in the 1950s involving the use of dummy drops over air bases was included, supposedly that shared a likeness to the witness reports of alien forms. However, these tests didn't start until at least 3 years, if not more, after the incident.
And I'm like, I feel like you're gonna like be able to tell the difference between a dummy and an
that's
alien.
The thing. Yes, there's more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's more about that. So, in 1994, the files regarding the project, as well as
Project Mogul.
So the files regarding Project Mogul and the dummy drops all became declassified and publicly available. In February of that year, the GAO office initiates an audit with the goal to locate all government records relating to Roswell to see if they were handled correctly. And the report was published in 1995, which supported the theory of the Project Mogul balloon, and the original press release, where it determined it as a flying saucer, was determined an overreaction. Because flying saucer at that time apparently didn't have a clear enough definition, despite being common enough to use in an official press release.
So flying saucer in like a press release, though. So this is like a press release. You're trying to get people like. I feel like
it was a press release, but it was also sort of like the first media coverage of it.
But, so this is like all media driven. This isn't like I'm going up to like the head of the CIA and being like, this is what it is.
Well, here's the thing. It was an army personnel or military personnel who gave the initial press release.
I feel like that you're trying to like explain it to average people. You're not going to be like, this is a weather balloon to detect sounds and explosions.
But like but they're not saying, oh, he did that just to cover up the project. They're saying that the wordage wasn't commonly used enough for it to have been like a genuine reaction. It was an overreaction.
I feel like this is more like trying to get people to understand like a harder concept.
It more just like bugs me that they said it wasn't clear enough, despite him clearly using it in a like defined way. So the report officially debunked the rumors. However, in an odd twist, it also confirmed that the weather balloon story initially, which was given a day after the press release, had in fact been a military cover-up. But not for alien wreckage, but rather for Project Mogul. So it makes sense that it was covering up this secret project, because they didn't want, obviously, the Soviets to get an edge on them.
So the Soviets were like, yes, weather balloons,
because this
completely on board.
project definitely existed. It was a real thing. So, but what's suspicious about it is that they said, yes, it was a military cover-up, but not
the military cover-up you're thinking of.
Yeah, it was a cover-up, but look over here, not over here.
I feel like that's the best way. Like that is like pretty much the only way you can be like, yeah, we covered it up, but it's not in the way you're thinking of. Like I feel like then people are gonna be like, everybody who's crazy is like, it was a military cover-up, which I think it was.
Yeah.
I was like,
at that point, just like leave the story, or just say like, because the files are now getting declassified, so they can talk about it.
They're never gonna really declassify.
No, they're not. But so another report was released in 1997. This time regarding the dummy drop explanation for the supposed alien bodies. Most important parts of this suggested that the military believed witnesses were confusing reports of the 1947 incident with the 1950 drops. Despite,
that's 3 years. Like, exactly. I can understand if it was like, 2 months later.
If you're seeing alien bodies, you're gonna remember that. You're gonna be like, yes, in the summer of 47,
or like
I saw this.
Yeah, like I feel like you wouldn't that's like trying to confuse freshman year versus like junior year. Like, no, those are clearly very distinct. And then also like when you talk about it, like the things that they dropped were like mannequins versus the things that they saw were small, gray, like, you know, the stereotypical alien.
So that's what it is. There was huge discrepancies between the descriptions, which I actually read the report. They go in depth into each one, and they're like, oh, so the supposedly alien bodies that they saw were reported to be around 4 or 5 feet, I believe, and the dummies were all 6 feet and up. So
well, that's such a stretch though. Like at first you have to be like, people are like misremembering it by 3 years, and then like I can understand like one person, but like this had to be a lot of accounts.
And then the way that they described it in the report, like the official report that they released, said things like, yes, the dummies were missing their legs, or because they fell off in the crash landing, because it was some sort of crash test, something like that, or reports of them being completely bald. Well, test dummies don't have hair. Reports of them having like flat faces. Their faces got smushed.
Here's the thing though, at this time, things like mannequins existed. Like if somebody dropped a mannequin into my backyard, at first I'd be like, okay, what is that? But like pretty quickly I'd be like, okay, I see a picture of that. That's probably a mannequin. That's not like a free. And these are like that's you're gonna the amount of like
the way that they tried to
things that had to go wrong for this to be plausible just doesn't make sense.
Just the way that they tried to describe it with the dummies. Some people were like, oh, they're missing, the aliens only had 4 fingers. They're like, well, a finger snapped off. So it doesn't exactly line up. So what was also noteworthy in that report was that the files, again, were requested from the Roswell Air Force Base this time, instead of, I believe, just from the regular government records. These were specifically Air Force records. They were all found to have been destroyed. and there was no record of who had ordered it or who had done it.
I feel like if you're working on like this top secret thing to defeat the Soviets, like with like Project Mogul, was it? Yeah. I feel like you're gonna keep really detailed records of that because you're like, okay.
I
well,
can
we
also
need to
see
defeat
them
the
being
Soviets.
destroyed if they think there's a possibility of it being compromised, and that's not something that they would have.
But the thing is,
Well, if it's compromised, right? That's not something they're gonna come out and say, especially during, like even in the 90s, they're not gonna come out and say that just because it'll look bad to their reputation.
but then you wouldn't come out with all of Project Mogul. Like if that much of Project Mogul was compromised, like and that had to be destroyed.
Well, I feel like the reason
with
they came out with it declassified is because it's not of use anymore.
Well, right, but then like clearly there were still a bunch of records on it.
Right.
Like it wasn't such a catastrophic failure. You had to destroy all of it.
Yeah, it was specifically the files from that year from Roswell were destroyed. So then into the evidence part is it was largely based off of eyewitness testimony.
Evidence for aliens?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Eyewitness testimony, which can be very sketchy.
But like how many? Like if you have one person.
It was said to be around 600 and up. There was at least 600, possibly more.
So I get one person missees, mistakes.
Right.
Oh, I'm really hyped up.
That's
like
the thing.
this mannequin is totally an alien. But like if you've got 600 people, sure, there's going to be variations.
And they were all
but, like
it was both civilian and high-level military witnesses, all recounting similar details. They weren't necessarily the same, which would have been the optimal, circumstance. But
no, but even if it was, like, I'd be more
Right.
suspicious if everybody said the exact same thing, because
Right.
that almost to me feels like a cover-up. But if everybody's kind of
It's
saying, they
the fact
looked
that
like
there's
they
so
were
many
test
witnesses
dummies.
and there's military witnesses too, like the initial press release was a military officer who declared it a flying saucer. That officer, I believe, actually was. Oh gosh, what was it? He was not removed from duty, but he was placed on leave, and then no one had contact. No one had contact with him. So supposedly, people assumed that maybe it was cover up for a cleanup op. So, let's see. There's also a contradiction between official record and eyewitness testimony. So, a large number of witnesses described the debris as otherworldly, and the rancher who found the crash initially admitted it was likely a UFO. However, the press release amended only a day later, and the rancher recanted any UFO statements he had made.
I feel like, though, that's the first person the government's going to put pressure
Well, here's
on.
the thing. Shortly after he recanted his statements, he purchased a new truck and left his job to start a business. There was also testimony from locals and his family that he was detained. So, I feel like
though it's more, we know it's a cover-up, but is it a cover-up for Mogul
Right.
versus cover-up for aliens? And I feel like that many like eyewitness testimony is wrong, like doesn't seem right. And then also like why, to me, I don't get like how big I guess Mogul is, especially if it's like later declassified.
I feel like Mogul at the time during the Cold War, when everything was so tense, it would have been huge. Because to have any sort of, I believe, when was the atom bomb? Not the atom bomb.
The atomic bomb?
Or not the atomic bomb, but
well,
like the sort of like the nuclear race. That started in like the 60s, right?
I do not know what you're talking about.
You know, when it was the U.S. and the Soviet were stockpiling nuclear weapons.
Oh, I have absolutely no clue. We never got to that push.
So, well, we didn't either, but the U.S. and the Soviet were stockpiling nuclear weapons. So that's why Mogul was so big, because if the U.S. could get a lead on the nuclear tests that the Soviets were doing, they could either keep them in check or steal their ideas or some...
And I guess that would make sense, like...
Right.
Give credit to Mogul, like you're in
I can see why
the Mexican desert.
Right, exactly. And
where the bombs were originally developed.
It's being declassified in the late 90s.
Which is after the Soviet Union fell.
Exactly.
So.
And we're well past not exactly well past, but like, it's past the point where they needed nuclear espionage or anything like that. So, see, the U.S., like I said, the U.S. colonel that issued the initial press release went on leave. And according to his staff member, actually, it was supposedly a cover-up for a cleanup.
But like a cleanup for what?
That's the thing. So, there's a key contradiction in the photo taken of the supposed crash materials, which we can probably show. It's not that hard to find. The public information officer claims that the photo was... So there was an officer who claimed that it was a hoax, in a report that he wrote, he requested to be opened only after his death.
Has he died yet?
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's why we know about it. He claimed that in the photo, the actual crash materials were substituted with actual weather balloon material. Because if you don't have a video of them walking into the room where the debris is or bringing the debris into the room, it's just a picture of him posing with the debris.
But I guess that's kind of the thing, though, you would do, too. Like, I feel like the fact that it's a cover-up, like, makes sense. It's more like, what is a cover-up for? Like, I guess that makes sense for either type of cover-up. Like, you want to be like, oh, yeah, it's a weather balloon. We're not spying on the Soviets.
Also, so there's the whole weather balloon Project Mogul debate. There's also the debate of the witness reports of alien body description. There's no government records of this. Like, nothing in any of the reports says anything about bodies except for the whole dummy drops thing, saying that if they saw bodies, that's what they saw.
So they're not even, like, saying, no, we had dummies there.
Well, no, they're saying like, there were dummies dropped within that range area. Like,
but 3 years later.
Right, 3 years later. So
yeah, so like they're not even like saying like we were covering up.
Witnesses were consistent in the description. Again, like 4 to 5 feet tall.
Well, like you're getting
little, short little bodies.
people to say the same thing.
Exactly.
It's not
little short little bodies, like big, that had like wide eyes, like the typical alien. What you picture when you picture an alien. That's kind of what makes me like more skeptic about it, because if you're
no
seeing,
explanation.
Well, there's no explanation, but it's also if you're seeing. Like, personally, I believe that there's aliens, but I don't think that they're necessarily sentient. I think there's life in space. But I don't think they necessarily look like the little tiny bodies from, like, E.T. or whatever.
But those are all based on the Roswell incident.
Well, right, no, that's what I'm saying. But, like, even before that, there were still alien, like, people knew enough about typical aliens to look at what they saw and say, that's an alien.
Yes and no. From what I like understand though, like these grays, because they were gray skinned and they had big eyes and like big heads.
And that was another thing.
That,
they said for the gray skin, they described it as the gray flight suits of the dummies.
But like, these are all gray. Like a flight suit is not gonna. Right. And the thing is, there's nothing in like. That's like a bad explanation to say you're misremembering it. Exactly. 3 years later. That's
the big thing that they're saying.
Yeah.
They're not saying. They're not saying, oh, these were dummies. They're saying, you're remembering the dummy incident, not
3 years later. Like that, no.
That's what doesn't make sense.
If it was one person or 2 people, I could like get it. But 600 people all misremembering an event by 3 years does not make sense.
Yeah. So then there was also, according to a flight engineer who was stationed in the hangar where they supposedly brought the debris, in 2008, he admitted that it was a spaceship after denying the claims for more than 40 years. And according to him, there was supposedly no visible engine in the craft.
Interesting. But, like, why would he recant after 40 years? Like, he's got nothing to lose?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because he was, I mean, after 40 years, if he was a flight engineer there, he was old enough, he was old enough. He's probably, like, in his 70s, 80s, 90s now. So he's retired. He's got nothing left to lose. So, I mean, I can see why he would recant his statements. But I can also see why he'd deny it for 40 years, because, like...
Well, like, that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's such a... Well, I'll talk about this later, but there's such a high stigma against reporting things like this in the military, so... and like I said before, the metal supposedly had unexplained qualities that were not, like, human metal. And there is an intelligence officer who had knowledge of aircraft materials. He said himself that he knew all the materials used in aircrafts, and he had graduated from the Air Force Training Command in radar technology. According to him, so this was one of the guys who initially mistook it as alien wreckage. And he's got all this experience in air technology. He works for the Air Force, and he somehow mistakes the rubber strips and tinfoil of a weather balloon for, like, you would think someone who works for the Air Force knows what a weather balloon looks like.
Right. And, like, even if it was something to do with Project Mogul of, like, a plane or something, someday the Air Force is going to be able to, like...
He'd be able to say, well, that's not a weather balloon, but it looks similar. It's made of similar material to a weather balloon.
Or even if you can say, that's a plane. That looks like the plane I fly, or the plane I used to fly, or something like that. But
it was also with the wreckage. It wasn't necessarily like, obviously it's wreckage, so it's not shaped like a plane. There's no discernible like shape to it. Mm-hmm. It's in pieces. It's just we don't know what those pieces are. Mm-hmm. So that's mostly it for Roswell. Not much new has happened with it. It's still like they have their alien festivals. They're having a time of their lives down in Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah.
But it's just, that does make me think that because Roswell has like gotten so much from this. They profit from this every year.
They get so much tourism.
Right, exactly. So if you can get a couple hundred people in the town together to start spreading this, like, it had already had, by the time they started taking witness reports, it was this huge media coverage.
I feel like, though, trying to get 600 people to, like, all say the same thing that didn't happen is so incredibly hard to do.
It would be
and then also
colossal undertaking, but
when you figure out in, like, the 90s that the government came out and said, yes, this was a cover-up for Project Mogul, sure, whatever, like, trying to fake that, it would just be so hard to do and so coincidental. I don't think it was Roswell.
It's hard to tell because of the nature of the wreckage, and there's so many confusing accounts. Mm-hmm. It's just, there's no way so. And despite all the testimonies, all of the confliction, the military still upholds their conclusion that either people misunderstood it, they misremembered it, or it was some sort of secret project that no one knew about. So that leaves UFO enthusiasts to keep theorizing.
Next, let's talk about the aliens. And we're also on Zoom because somebody has to quarantine. No comment.
Anyways.
Just start, please. It's been going on for 15 minutes.
I know. On March 13th, 1997, UFOs were observed over Arizona, Nevada, and parts of New Mexico. It is interesting to note it's the same year as the Roswell report was released to the general public. It was between about 7:30 and 10:30 p.m. with two distinct events, a triangular light formation, as well as stationary lights. The initial report came from a Nevada man who reported that a V-shaped object the size of a 747 with 6 lights was like passing over his ranch or his house.
And what's this called?
What?
What's this like event called?
I'm getting there.
Okay, sorry.
The caller's been reporting that the object was solid because it blocked out the sky. Within the V shape, actually, you know what, I have this. Camera is inverted. It was shaped like this. So if the lights are here, and then this entire spot inside the lights was completely blocking out the stars.
Cool.
So supposedly, despite air traffic controllers' lights, they see them on their radar. And the first sightings over Phoenix reported 5 V-shaped lights. The second sighting around 10 p.m. supposedly 9 lights in the same or similar shape. It's become known as the Phoenix Lights phenomenon because the majority of the witnesses of the video, there was a lot of it captured on video as well as pictures that were on the news stations. So it's sort of the movement of isn't as well known as the idea of Phoenix lights. And so there were accounts and information regarding the number of lights varied by source anywhere from 4 lights to 9 lights, but it's generally like the first big sighting was 5, and then the second big sighting where it came back was 9. There will be no questions.
No, I'm just holding up the numbers. I had to think about how many I had to hold up for number
count.
9. I know. I'm very surprised.
Said by the person who said, and I quote, "Number that looks like snowman? 8."
That was after a very hard Algebra 2 test, okay? And I stand by that. 8 looks like a snowman.
No, okay. And it was so the lights movement was consistent with other reports of lights fading in and out at random moments while they are moving or hovering. While it didn't have as much controversy as Roswell, it still got a lot of media attention in its time, and with over 700 witnesses. So important in both cases is the idea that it's a lot easier to defend what you're seeing when there's hundreds of people as compared to like 10 people.
I don't know. I feel like I could get like, I feel like if you threw a Dunkin' like gift card, a $25 Dunkin' gift card for a raffle, like I feel like you could get all the witnesses to say the same thing.
Oh, that is not what you said the first time we recorded this. I remember. I will pull up that footage. I have the receipts. The first time you said this, you were all like, I bet they couldn't fake it. You can't fake multiple people like that.
Okay, with time, I've like grown as a person in the past like 4 days.
It's been 4 days.
With time, I've come to realize that I would do anything for a Dunkin' Donuts gift card, including faking seeing aliens.
Maybe
would you
get
not?
a job.
Don't be rude. Don't be rude. And plus, like, I feel like it would be so much easier to lie about aliens than getting a job.
But consistently?
Yeah.
No.
Gotta do it for Dunkin'. I lie on those college board surveys. Sorry, continue.
The college board doesn't deserve rights. Anyways.
No.
In 2008,
but aliens do.
In 2008, the lights reappeared over Phoenix, and it was pretty much the same thing as before. No, it actually wasn't.
Oh.
So, on to explanations. So there was an anonymous confession by a supposed hoaxer admitted to a local news station that he was the one who created the 2008 reappearance using flares and helium balloons, which was said to be an explanation for how the lights moved with the winds, like across the states. But there was no explanation.
Flares.
Well, there was no explanation for how they stay together or stay grouped up in lines like that.
Yeah, how would you do that with flares? Like, if general direction, but like if they're all like a line.
Supposedly, the formation of the actual lights in the actual event that happened was consistent with independent object movement and not fixed aircraft lights. Which,
according to who?
There's a lot of conflicting stuff about the movement of the lights. Some said that they stayed together as they moved. Others said they moved separately and then blinked out like individual lights. Others also said that what was it? Said that like there's this sort of phenomenon that happens with like the human eye, where when you look at a certain line of objects, you draw connections between them. So it's like it tricks your brain into thinking that objects are connected and moving together when they're not actually moving together. They're just moving in a similar way.
Like with all 700 people, and then like if it's blacking out, like flares are going to just take up the space they occupy. Like they're not going to black out the space inside. And then also like
a lot of the footage, you don't really see the blocking out, and that's also explained. Some people have said that there's a very distinct mountain range in that area that the lights seem to blink out. And when they compared the locations, it was near the mountain range. So there's a lot of like confliction between like things that could have possibly happened, but there's like one or two things wrong that could have that made it like that not able to happen. So there's a lot of confliction. But so then the first event, which was
they're saying like, oh, it doesn't look like aircraft, but like, I'm sorry, like an alien like 10 million light years away is not going to use like a 747 as like the pinnacle of human achievement. As
how
like,
do you know?
we have to like
you're
use
not
our
the
light
CEO of 747s, you know.
I'm sorry, have you met who my mother is? Okay, if I can't tell if it's a 747 versus a 737 when the plane is flying 40,000 feet in the air, I'm not loved.
Well, that was just a size reference. Like, this thing was massive.
Okay, but like at the same time, like just you say the lights aren't like what typical aircraft is, but like I'm sorry, I don't think an alien aircraft is going to be super typical.
How do you know what's typical?
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying. Aliens.
I'm
just
not.
let them
I'm saying
breathe.
They've got different aesthetics for like their spaceship lights.
Just let them live.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I will issue a formal apology to all aliens I have insulted by insulting the light style of their aircraft.
Good. The first event was the V shape with 5 lights early in the evening, and it still has no distinct provable explanation, and that's something
is this in 2008
carries along with No, this is the original one.
Okay, sorry.
The 2008 one has a lot of reports of being a hoax, and there's not as much coverage for it because it was, I guess, pretty unprovable or disprovable. But for the original events, there's really no distinct explanation. There's, like I said, there's explanations that make sense, but then there's like one or two things that don't line up with what actually happened. So there's some evidence to it being airplanes, and there's, for example, there was like
fake news, flight aware. Sorry. Oh,
well,
I realized
there was an astronomer who was very like certain that they were planes. After looking through his like super high power telescope, he was like, "I got it, baby. That's a plane." That's my Shane Madej impression.
I'd be like, "Oh, it's planes too."
You know, that's my Shane Madej impression. You know, he's like, that's a shark.
Boo.
That's a shark.
You suck. Sorry. That's not nice. Continue.
Well, anyone who's seen the Shark Arm Murders BuzzFeed Unsolved will know what I'm referencing. Which is probably just you.
I haven't even watched that episode. I don't vibe with sharks.
That shark didn't vibe with people either.
Shut up. Continue. Tell me about the aliens.
And so however, no military or civilian craft were known to be in the area, as mentioned with the traffic controllers before. There was nothing on the radar, like as far as they publicly released. And like but the controllers themselves said, like, yeah, we saw things. So like,
but non-plane things, right?
They saw they weren't on the radar.
I feel like you need to put planes on radar, unless
that's something that says maybe it wasn't a plane or some sort of like metal object, like that would show up on a radar, but that could also work for the flares. Like, you're not going to have a radar set to notice flares in the air.
I feel like also though, if it's like, some people like kind of say like with Roswell, oh, it's like a super secret intelligence like plane, but like, if this is like the top secret winning World War III kind of plane, and then like your pilot leaves the lights on, like I feel like you're gonna get in
why
so
would
much
you even
trouble.
like make it with lights, honestly? Like, or just like not give your lights a cap or something.
What do you mean a cap?
Like just something that like if you want to have the, like, you know, if you accidentally forget to turn them off, they got something covered.
Then what's the point of the lights?
Yeah, well, you don't have the cover on when you want to use the lights.
Okay, I feel like somebody, like if it was somebody who was like, oh yeah, gotta forget to turn off the lights, I feel like they would have been fired, and it would suck.
For the second event, which was at 10 p.m., that was 9 lights. That was at 9 lights. There's numerous video and images of this one, and it was explained by the Air Force. It was explained by the Air Force as slow falling flares dropped by an aircraft on a training exercise. So the slow falling.
Let's believe the government.
Well, so the slow falling of the flares as they're burning out would give the impression that as the lights are moving, they're fading out. Like they blinked out one by one. They didn't all go out together like you would expect with an aircraft.
And you don't think aliens have the ability to make a freaking dimmer switch? I feel like they do.
Why would they? We have
Why
been
do we
over
have
this.
dimmer switches in our houses? Okay, because sometimes you don't want the full.
Well, my grandparents do actually, but that's only in the dining room.
Okay,
their fancy
and you don't think this is the alien equivalent of like? I feel like
you're
if you're
telling me they
spend
got
alien
chandeliers
money,
on airplanes.
No, but they've got, maybe, I don't know how fancy these aliens are, but essentially, like, I feel like if you're making like this plane, it's not just gonna be an on-off switch.
What's the point of having a plane's lights dim? There's no point.
I don't know. Maybe certain aliens don't like intense light bulbs.
No, but there's no point. And all revolves around definition of alien anyway. Like, are
if
they?
You go on about like space
knows?
Bacteria. Okay,
maybe they're just like gloops.
Gloops.
Yep.
I just want to say I'm very glad that I'm not like in person with you, because I feel like you would have hit me over the head with your little papers by now.
Would have hit you.
I feel very safe.
No, maybe they're just like little slime things. Like they're not even humanoid. Who's to say they even breathe oxygen?
Just because you don't breathe oxygen doesn't mean that you
all I'm saying is like all of this depends on what you think aliens look like your definition of alien.
Like aliens look like Barbie dolls. There you go. submitting it to like the like
I'm gonna cut that out
on aliens.
I will cut that out.
That's like why like I feel like there's in my Barbie Magic Dream House from 2nd grade, I feel like there were little Barbie dimmer switches that didn't actually work.
I'm gonna
like,
edit that so it says 7th grade.
Shut up! I'm not gonna say that number then. Just go. Just keep telling me about the lights.
So that's not really. There's not really much else to it other than that. This one sort of hasn't been under as much scrutiny as Roswell has, mostly I think because there's not the possibility of bodies, and there was no.
How do you know what were in the planes?
There's no like substantial wreckage where there was in the Roswell incident. So this was more something that people saw it happened and they're like, huh, that's funky. Anyways, so but it's important it's important to note the amount of witnesses. That's really the key evidence in both of these. So
I feel like not only were there a lot of witnesses, like even if they were promised with a $25 Dunkin' Donuts gift card, like I feel like that's really hard to be consistent. Like if you're saying 600-700 people, like trying to get them all to say the same thing.
Plus also for this one, obviously they didn't have like video cameras in the 40s, but by now it's the late 90s. They've got cameras. These things are on TV. Like there's news reports there's news reports from Phoenix that day that show the lights very clearly. So you can't deny that something was there in both of these. Something was there. The real question is what.
And then like it's not like it's like one little location. Like in Roswell, it's like one little community, I guess. So that could even like the allure of a Dunkin' Donuts gift card could be really strong in like a little community. But like you have Phoenix, Arizona, and then you have also Nevada, and you have parts in Mexico. Like I feel like you're not gonna.
Well, and also like what I'm thinking is, there's these alien things like always happen in a very certain area. Like it's always
they
in
always
like the
happen
desert.
in the Pacific Southwest. Nope.
Yeah.
Southwest. The Southwest.
And you know what's there? You know what's there?
The zone of silence in Mexico. Oh. The zone of silence is more interesting.
Area 51, know what that is.
Area 51 is fake. It is okay. I will talk about it too much, but essentially, the zone of silence is in Mexico. It's like a place where magnets don't work and planes fall off radar. Like they just nothing electrical.
That just sounds like the Bermuda Triangle.
Except the zone of silence is actually real and has higher rates of incidences. Okay,
well,
we're getting off topic.
So,
I will say I would lie about aliens if you offered me a Dunkin' Donuts gift card.
That's great. The amount of witnesses in both cases, which in the hundreds, like above 500 witnesses, military and civilian. So the one to note is the military. And that ties into what I'm going to talk about next, which is the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, which was
sounds like long and complicated.
Which was established August 4th, 2020.
That's like less than a year ago. That's weird.
Yeah.
Why is this government related?
This is government related. There
is a global pandemic going on. Why would Trump be like, no, vaccines are fake.
It's led by the Department of the Navy. It has an official thing on the Department of Defense. I looked it up.
That means that in like Newport at the Newick building where like you've got all the like guys with machine guns standing everywhere, instead of being like, yes, let us deal with the pandemic, let's deal with like naval threats, they're like aliens, you guys.
Here's
also,
the thing.
Why the Navy? Why not the Air Force? What is the Navy going to be like? Aliens.
Here's why. So I'm going to explain the thing first. So it's the goal of the task force it's part of the Pentagon now. It's part of the Department of Defense. So its goal is to detect, analyze, and catalog UAPs that could potentially threaten national security. So UAP stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, which is the first part of the name again.
Oh, that's so hard to say.
It's important to include that this ties into both cases. And what's notable in both cases is the reluctance of military officials to either report or go on record describing what they saw.
And when you say both cases, you mean Roswell and the Phoenix Lights? Okay.
Yes. So the whole goal of this is not necessarily aliens, which is why they renamed it. Which is why they created the UAP acronym instead of UFO. And
UFO does not mean alien. UFO.
Well, here's the thing.
Flying
it does.
Nowadays, a UFO if you were bad enough at identifying things.
Well, exactly. But nowadays, UFO has become practically synonymous with
synonymous.
Shut up. How do you say it?
Synonymous?
Yes. It's practically become a synonym of alien. So, because when people think UFO, think alien, you think extraterrestrial, you think not human. But
I'm just going to start saying UAP whenever I think aliens now. I'm going to say unidentified alien phenomenon. Outsmarted the government.
UAP sounds a lot more militaristic than UFO does. It just does. I mean, to me,
unidentified alien phenomenon.
But
you shouldn't put the A in there. Sorry.
But because UFO is so commonly used in media, in like movies, books, TVs, all kinds of things, it's used to mean alien objects. But where it literally means anything that's unidentified, that's flying. Anything that you see that you don't know what it is. It could be resolved later. You could be like, oh yeah, that was just a test plane. Like, oh, okay.
Can we still get back to the government was doing this when they should have been like investing in vaccines?
We can ignore that
instead of trying to overturn the freaking election results. Like, if you know, all right,
the point of it. I'm gonna stop you before this gets political, and we get. I'm gonna stop you before this gets political, and we get in trouble.
Do you think the aliens hacked the voting machines in Georgia?
Shut up.
Sorry.
The reason for the creation of this is that because of the reluctance to report, of the officials' reluctance to report, it's incredibly highly discouraged to report unidentified objects when you're in the military.
I feel like in the military, a lot of things that are discouraged aren't like.
Well, a lot of personnel. And
have you heard of Ed Snowden? Like, I feel like reporting all that stuff was discouraged.
I don't want to hear you talk about Snowden anymore. I am sick of it.
I'm so sorry.
I'm calling you out right now.
No, please. I promise I won't say anything more.
No, but it's very highly discouraged. A lot of both current personnel and ex-personnel feel that it's basically taboo to report or on records describing what you saw. And because a lot of people feel like saying, oh yes, I saw a UFO, that can destroy someone's military career or reputation. And I want to get really
political right now, but I promise I won't.
Well, but now there's a genuine serious channel that you can go through to report anything. It's part of the government now. You report anything that is unidentified and flying, because could it be alien?
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
But also, could it be?
It could be a Russian spy plane.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're looking for things that could be threats to national security that we don't have knowledge of. So that's the idea behind it. But it also sort of like gets rid of some of that stigma around just reporting unidentified objects, because you don't know what they are. Like, a lot of people who have gone on record saying that they saw things, like, which I'll talk about
soon.
Something
spooky.
Which I'll talk about soon. There's footage of the people who saw it, or people who saw similar things, saying, yeah, if I was alone, like if it had just been alone on patrol, if I hadn't been with 2, 3, 4 other people, other planes, like I wouldn't have reported it, because they would have said I was crazy. So there's a lot of stigma around reporting it. So going into more recent times again, so very recently, the video is from 2019. It was leaked in 2019.
Before the UAP.
Before this was created. Yeah. So before this whole department was created, there was a leaked video in 2019 of a UAP. And it was recently confirmed by the Department of Defense that it was in fact legit.
When you say legit, are they coming out and saying, yes, this is an alien?
So
like unidentified alien phenomena?
They're saying this isn't fake.
And so, like, by fake, you mean like I didn't get out iMovie.
They're
and,
saying
like,
it
try
wasn't
and, like,
edited by someone
overlay
at home,
everything.
because this was a leaked video that was sent to like some sort of magazine or whatever. I don't know.
Snowden. Mr. Kennedy will be so proud I'm relating the things he learned in class to like current events.
But you have to keep in mind, this video was leaked. So they didn't want it to be released. It was sent to the press. And so essentially what they're doing is they're coming out and saying, yes, this is a real video that was taken on a real like plane or ship. I don't know if it was a plane or ship. It was,
Can we see the video, or is it like copyrighted?
Yeah, I do have. I'll show it at the end because I think I can screen share it, but I have to find it.
Or we can just edit it in like
yeah,
now.
but if I screen share it, then I can get your reaction. It'll look fine. So
okay, but we'll also edit it in.
Well, I can
now.
describe it here. So it's footage of these. There's these triangle-shaped objects moving through the clouds that was taken by Navy personnel, and there's also, along with this leak, there was also some photos released.
Why is the Navy so involved in aliens? Like,
well, so a lot of it comes from Navy. There are Navy planes, like on Navy ships. But
there are. I don't know nearly enough about.
So okay, so my grandfather was in the Navy, so he's told us all his airplane stories and everything. They have these aircraft carriers that, carry all the planes, and they'll go around for like patrols and stuff. So they're still planes, but they're part of the Navy because they're flying over the sea and everything. The Air Force is strictly like, I don't know how, this is just my understanding of like it with all the stuff that I've seen. I don't know if this is like actually true or not, but like the Air Force seems to be more like on land, and they have bases on land more usually, where the Navy
as opposed
has
to where, in the air?
No, well the Navy has the planes on the boats.
Boat plane.
Yes. My grandfather worked on them. He saw a man get sucked into them once.
We don't have time to unpack all that, so let's move on.
And that was in like the 50s or something. Kitty!
That was a cat. No. Give her attention.
But yes, the Navy has planes. It does.
Plane.
So there was also 3 photos of UAPs that were released not released, they were leaked, and then they were confirmed to be legit. So the objects were sphere, acorn, and blimp shape. So those are just sort of like general ideas.
It's the college board. It's the college board. The acorn shape. It is the college board, and they're trying to figure out. They're gonna like.
Those are just like ideas of what they were shaped like. Because you can't really describe them unless you use obviously human shapes. So.
Human shapes.
Yep.
Is an acorn a human?
Yes.
Okay. This is all a college board conspiracy theory. I'm telling you that now.
So these leaked incidents were all included in the UAPTF ongoing investigation.
And what
so
is
there's
that?
this, well, not necessarily investigation. The word they used was examination, I think. So they're looking into these photos. They're actively looking at these and trying to say, okay, what are we seeing here? So they're trying to see like it's not necessarily an investigation. They don't necessarily think that it is something to look out for. It's more of okay, we have these, so might as well like examine them, not like go deep into that. So this is what I'm going to leave it on, is that there is U.S. intelligence unclassified reports that are expected in Congress in this June. That
is like 2 days away.
To aim to make public any and all information that the Pentagon has regarding UAPs and UFOs.
I swear to God, I don't want to get political here, so I'm gonna try and keep it less political. But I'm telling you, in that COVID relief bill, there is alien money in there.
Well, see, this is
why
what
is the government spending money on aliens?
This is what I find fascinating about it, though, is that this report is entirely unclassified. It's probably going to be broadcast on like C-SPAN or whatever. It's probably going to be. Channel. It's going to be recorded. This is going to be something. I don't want to say something big, because we don't necessarily. They're probably going to say we don't know anything. But
typical government response. Never want to look at aliens.
But that's why it's so interesting, because all of this just keeps trickling down. This is happening this month.
Don't use that wording. Don't trickle down alien economics. Sorry, I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this.
Stop.
I'm gonna get some. Sorry, continue.
No.
Alien Reagan.
Please, God, one Reagan was bad enough.
Shut up! You're just in so much trouble. Just continue.
But that's what's so interesting about it, is this is happening next month. This could be happening
in a week.
Yeah, it could be happening next week for all we know. So
I'm gonna start looking things up. Like, when is this happening?
They haven't said. All it says is June. These unclassified U.S.
Government.
intelligence. Look up.
Okay.
No. Look up
Oh.
UAPTF intelligence reports or something like that.
I feel like that's
there's a whole
too
bunch of news,
scientific of a name.
There's a whole bunch of
we're
news
talking
articles about it that they're planning this. They're expected to speak to Congress to give this whole thing in June. So I think it's going to be something to look out for.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, that's aliens.
Ooh, you can apparently use the Freedom of Information Act to get access to the alien records.
Well, that's what I'm saying. These are unclassified records that they're releasing. So obviously they're going to have more records, because this is a Department of Defense thing. They're going to have records that are classified. What they're releasing, since they're unclassified, these are probably going to be the most basic things, or they're going to be things that have been declassified, like what happened with Roswell. That, like, what was it, like 50 years after it happened, they released the reports about it.
Yeah.
So we could potentially see things like that. But I think it'll be very interesting to see what they have to say, or whether they say anything at all.
They're gonna say so. I'm gonna be like glued to C-SPAN now, just so I can figure out what's happening with
there'll be
alien
news
Ronald
articles
Reagan.
and stuff all about it once it happens, probably, because I've seen a few of those already. So